One of the interesting things about life and acting is that it's possible to break character just in day-to-day life. Um, it's possible to be sitting across from somebody while they're saying something, and you're supposed to have a certain response, like something I'm talking about, like that it is clearly um, of a certain nature. Let's say somebody is talking about something that's clearly tragic, and you're not responding in a way that shows that you're hearing something tragic. Maybe you're smiling, or maybe you're even laughing, and you have to visibly try to refocus your attention on that person and that tragedy to hook yourself into the character of tragedy, into the energy of tragedy. Um, which is interesting to me that can happen. It's almost like we need to have certain conditions be met before we can plug ourselves into what somebody is saying sufficiently so as to be in line with them. And those conditions are far too vast to even begin to list, especially when considering the prior relationship and the nature of the relationship between the two people. I mean, if you're both comedians and you're always joking, and one of them is telling the other about something extremely tragic, it's almost as if discussing tragedy is the outlier, and you're wondering if they're the ones, are they actually being serious? You wonder that, so you might laugh and think it's funny, waiting for the punchline type thing. Because acting is definitely one of the high arts. Acting and a civilization who has actors, and a film industry is a civilization that has additional intellectual calories, let's say. It's almost like a civilization with gyms, who lifts weights and works out, has additional regular calories. We can just do that. We can just get up and eat a lot and burn calories solely for strength and aesthetics. And as something to do, obviously, but. But it's funny because the actor pulls us in. That's what they do. And a good actor is always probably most complimented when they are told that what they've done has made me believe it. That's the highest compliment you can pay. It's like it was actually happening. And it makes you wonder, can you just pick anybody off the street and turn the camera on and say act, and can they do it? I would wonder. I don't think so, because it's not easy to hold a character like that. There's something called corpsing. That's when an actor continues to laugh and break character over and over and over again through multiple takes, and they just simply cannot help themselves. Ricky Gervais is notorious for this. Like he'll do like 50 takes because he just cannot stop himself from laughing. And the weird thing is it's not even intentional. It's like when you're corpsing, there's this thing that takes over you. It's almost like a little clown inside of you that just cannot stop laughing, and it's contagious and it spreads. And once it spreads, it's very hard to get it back in check. It's completely involuntary. And sometimes people do this intentionally. You know, if there's a scene going on and one of the actors doesn't like the way it's going, they might just start laughing, so they'll have to redo it. And at that point, you're at high risk for starting, a series of corpsing, because it's just a very difficult thing. And in life, we don't get multiple takes, but something similar definitely does happen. And it's like this specific energy that just sort of takes over the area, the group, and you're all involuntarily laughing, and just you're all suddenly aware of something. And that's the thing too in life. We want people to take us seriously. We want people to believe us. We want it to where when we're saying something, people aren't just thinking about something else, or constantly interrupting you, or behaving in a way that shows that they are not on the same wavelength. In a way, it's like we have to do something similar to acting, but not as though you're playing a character, because playing a character would drain you. I mean, if you were doing that all day, every day, that's pretty demanding, to have to actively be somebody who you aren't. Maybe in small spurts, at certain times, but all day, every day, no way. That's too much. Like, your nervous system just won't roll with that. But still, and your charm, your beauty, your very existence is a constant hook. And you can tell people give you feedback. Not always in so many words, but you can just tell by the way people generally respond to you, whether or not you're taken seriously, or whether or not whatever it is that you are is something that people can generally connect with. And it's also interesting. The camera is like this weird objective observer that collects the scene, and it is the center of the universe. It is the most important thing. And if you're acting while the camera is off, it's almost like you're never gonna get that back. It's lost. And it's funny too. You never get the same take twice, even if you say the exact same lines and do it over and over and over again 50 times. You will never get the identical scene twice, which is strange too, because there are no two identical blades of grass, there are no two identical gusts of wind, there are no two identical everything ever. And editing is like this sort of magical process that lets you assemble the gold and lace it together. And when actors get together, it's like this energetic chemistry, this energetic symmetry that has a way of flowing. And where do you go with improvising? It's like I like to say, like, we're always improvising. It's like we have our entire lives up until this point. We have everything that we know, everything that we are, but we still sort of improvise on a moment-to-moment basis. It's like, in a strange way, it's like we're kind of like Google. There's a blank space there where you can type anything you want. And when you do type it and press enter, the information that corresponds to what you typed arrives. But until you type it and until you press enter, it's a completely blank spot where anything could happen. And being a human is a lot like that. Because we genuinely don't know exactly what we're going to say or exactly what we're going to do. Because that is always being brushed up against what's happening in real time. It's like AI is this sort of, we kind of put it down when we talk about it and call it a sort of a random probability generator, but that's exactly what we are. We just have some degree of consistency based off of what history has shown in our personalities. Our personalities give us some degree of reliability and predictability, which is a good thing. I mean, if we were all just these sort of abstract, completely random agents, then who would anybody be? And it's funny too, like, with actors and a set for a show or a TV or whatever, it's almost like this zone where just something different is happening. The energy is a little bit different. Like if you were standing with two people and you were just suddenly like, all right, start acting, and they clearly did, they clearly did start to be two characters. It's like all of a sudden something different is happening. You know what I mean? It's like, how well can you actually take on a completely different human being and play them and be them? And it makes you wonder about things like method acting, and it makes you wonder about how for some actors it's so easy and natural for them, where they didn't have to go to some kind of acting school and they don't have to do it the method way, and yet there is still something completely captivating and completely interesting and award-worthy about their performance. Some people just have a natural likability about them, which probably goes a lot further than we're willing to admit, but your charm and your charisma and your beauty is the best vehicle for everything all the time. And people who like to say that beauty standards and maybe likability standards are completely fictionalized constructs that we just made up for some purpose is completely wrong. That's not how human beings work. We do first, and then we observe, and then we put it into words. It's not the other way around. We don't have a committee sitting around somewhere that plans these things out and then enacts them in the world. That's simply not how it works. And to think that it is that way is a colossal failure in understanding how we operate. Anybody who comes along and says XYZ is a social construct in an effort to make it sound like it was deliberately designed first to exist in the way that it does to extract some specific result is completely wrong, and they should never be taken seriously. Because it's also an insult to human beings in general that we would be so malleable so as to just take on some completely fictionalized and abstract construct and live it out in the world with such conviction like that. And it also makes it sound like we could get together and agree on something else and act that out just as naturally as anything else, which is completely not the case at all. That's not ever going to happen. And again, somebody who thinks that it will is wrong, and they will be disappointed many times over. Beauty is not an invention. Beauty simply is. And you can try to twist that up as many ways as one would like, but it's redundant. It is. And when I go to a movie to watch an actor, uh, I mean, it might sound shallow to say, but their beauty is part of what's going on here. A good actor is going to be revered in a way that's almost like immortality, because a good actor is a vehicle for all of us. Even in the most outlandish, clearly fictional stories, we are going to identify with an actor playing just about any role, because at the end of the day, they are exactly like us. They are human beings. And the more universal your performance, arguably, the better it is. And we can act out the same stories over and over and over again and replace the actors and get a completely different feel. Casting is the most important thing you can do. Like, casting can make shitty scripts into gold, and it can make golden scripts into complete shit. It's absolutely the most important thing, and it's another one of those things where people lately seem to believe that you can just put anybody in any role and it'll be just fine, but that has failed catastrophically. I mean, we've tried to replace established characters who are as they are generally with all sorts of different types of people, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work critically, and it doesn't work financially. And when we go to watch that sort of thing, it not only doesn't hook, but it actually does the opposite. It's worse than just breaking the spell. It actually causes a sense of like, you have no idea what you're doing. You know, it causes a little bit of resentment, to be honest. It's like an insult to the intelligence of the viewer. And that's another thing. It's like, first and foremost, treat your viewers as though they are super intelligent geniuses. Start there and work your way back. Because the portrayal of the public is often not very generous. And public opinion is the thing that we over and over go back to as the thing, the most important thing. Secrets are kept from the public because the public finding out it's always the ultimate judgment. When you get large groups of people together who aren't whipped up in a frenzy and you ask them a question, the wisdom of that group of people is far, far, far stronger than any single person. If you get 100 people together and ask them to guess the weight of a car, the average is going to be extremely close to the actual weight. If you get 100 people together and ask them a simple question, unbiased, a wide range of people, the final answer will be extremely close to wisdom. There are outliers, and there are extremes. And it's very easy to just notice those. We kind of do that lately too. It's like with the internet and the advent of full-blown access to everybody all the time, it's like we tend to notice those extremes and take them as the wisdom of the crowd. And it's absolutely not the case, because once you start to see a large clump of positive feedback, it just becomes a mass of positive feedback and nothing distinctive at all. And then you see that one terrible comment and you're like, oh, okay, you know, and that one tends to sink in more, and it just completely gets rid of the whole point of scrolling over the wisdom of the crowd. It's it's an interesting thing, actually. And it's interesting too how respectable improv is. And like I said in a previous video, it's very difficult to improvise a full, long, and truly compelling story through the vocal cords. Writing it is one thing because you can store it on paper and you can recall it and edit it, but a verbalized story that is completely fictional, it really is a show of how focused you can be as this sort of random generator. It's like, can you pick a single word, like acting, and just talk about acting? And for how long? And the degree to which it is actually interesting and actually carries heavy information and heavy analysis is important, because anybody can just kind of trail off and start rambling. And I would like to see that, to be honest, a day where, improvised comedy is actually kind of a similar thing, because you're picking a single word, humor, comedy, laughter, and you're committing to that and bending your words and stories and things that come to mind to the contours of humor, which is different than picking a word like drama or love and telling some kind of love story. Telling a 20-minute love story that actually takes a crowd or a group of people on a captivating voyage. It would be an interesting thing to see, like some kind of, club or some kind of theater where somebody just sat there, and instead of it being a full performance, like a play, just a person telling a story, but it has to be improvised. I don't know why. I think that would be like an interesting thing, And good acting, it makes you feel. And when you read a script, it either hits you and calls you, or it doesn't. It's like when you're reading a script, there's something about the actor that sees themselves in it as well, because there's no way to completely remove the actor from the role. There's no way to strip yourself down to complete objectivity as a completely neutral agent and simply adopt this brand new character cleanly all the way through. There's no way to do that. There's always going to be shreds and some ratio, some amount of the actor in the role. But that's actually kind of a good thing, because when I go to see Robert Downey Jr. play a character, I like the fact that it's him or any other actor that I like and think is good. The fact that it's them is a huge reason why you're there, because you like the fact that it is shreds of that person. It's their version of what that character looks like. And if we knew somebody in real life, like one of our friends who just started playing a role, just started playing a character that clearly wasn't them, we would think that they were insane. We'd be like, what are you doing? Like, we would wait for them to snap out of it. But what if that happened and they never stopped, and that just became who they were? Like, they just woke up one day and had a different accent and was telling stories about their experiences that clearly wasn't theirs. How long before you believed it and thought maybe the person that they were all along was the false character, and now suddenly, for whatever reason, the real one has been revealed? I mean, people have been in accidents and have hit their heads and changed dramatically. There's all sorts of things with the brain that has those sorts of characteristics where the way a person actually feels changes. But I wonder if there's something going on there where the person inside is dissatisfied with the fact that they can't be who they were, and they're aware of it, which would be a tragedy. when I was a kid, I used to imagine, I think it's because of Men in Black, um, that part in the movie where they open up the alien and there's this other smaller alien inside with these little controllers. Ever since I saw that when I was a kid for a couple of years, I thought that's what we were. You know what I mean? Like that's what I thought. That's what I thought was going on. I thought we all had this little true tiny version of us sort of inside that was animating the whole character. And when you're younger, it's a strange thing because you're so plugged into the immediate that you're not really considering the truth in the way that you do when you're older, at least, obviously. You just don't have the mental or psychological geography to even go there. But it's interesting how we, as part of our existence, almost have like an hourglass shape. Like it starts out really wide, and then it narrows down, and then it widens back out again, you know? It's almost like we start out wide open to be anyone, you know? And then somewhere in maybe the teenage years, we start to narrow down and focus and shave off a lot of those things. And then you get older and older, and it starts to widen back out again. And they say every 7 years or so, you go through a bit of a recycling, a sort of drastic changes, you know, sort of happen to you every 7 years. Which seems pretty consistent. But anyway, what is it when a good actor is off camera? I've noticed this. The actors that I think that are the best, the ones that have pulled me in and actually made me kind of believe for a second that they actually had these things going on, when they're off camera and they're giving an interview, it seems like they just have a little bit more credibility as a person. And at least for the first half of my life, that's how I felt. And honestly, that's how it seemed. You know, it seemed like, man, these people are able to adopt these different characters and play these different characters. They must know something. And I think the world of acting and that whole world started to maybe think of themselves as a special club. The special club of fame. Because the only people that understand what it's like to have that are other actors. I mean, think about it. Across time, historically, years and years and years ago, think about how strange of a thing it would be to suddenly have something like an actor show up in your civilization. Or suddenly this place where people could get together and pretend for a while. But it wasn't that they were just pretending to have fun somewhere. People actually showed up to watch it. Which is, I mean, honestly, I think the whole acting thing probably would have just come and gone if nobody cared. You know, like if people who tended toward that art got together and acted and nobody cared, well, it may have just been a flash in the pan. But not only did people start to show up, over time it started to change to where there were certain levels to where high society, you know, the highest among us, so to speak, would go and watch this thing happen. And it started to form the nucleus of a certain sort of society. Like, if you go even further back, the actors were just the storytellers. Were just the people who told the story. They didn't act it out. Maybe slightly in some ways, But at what point did it change from a group of people telling a story, maybe a legend, or some kind of fairy tale, or even a real story about something that happened? When did it change from that to acting it out? Because they're very, very, very different things. Like, I wonder if the storyteller, for whatever reason, started to have somebody nearby who would physically animate the words that they were saying. Imagine how weird that would be, how different that would be. You're sitting there and you're like, whoa, we have a visual aid now. And it's just an interesting thing to think about, and how far that's come and how complicated that's gotten, to where we have this situation where the whole goal is to genuinely persuade you that it is actually happening, to make you cry in the movie theater, to scare you, to actually make you pay money to be afraid. I mean, it's pretty wild. And then the sort of training you get when you get used to the feedback of the people, both in terms of critical and financial, when people are paying money to see you act, and when people are saying good things about your acting, you slowly start to learn over time what people like. You know which facial expressions, which tones of voice, which modes of being are the ones that survive the editing. Because, you'll do 3 or 4 takes, and I know that certain actors and certain people will watch over and over and over again. Now, today, we're to a point where we all have cameras, and we all post things on the internet. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us do. And now we can do multiple takes, and now we can pick the best ones. And the same thing kind of happens where you get feedback. And I mean, for me, it's perfectly obvious when somebody is playing a character, because people's voices totally change, and their mannerisms totally change. They kind of become an outsized version of themselves. And it's not one of those things that's a criticism, obviously. It's just the way it is. And now there is a kind of dividing line between the actor who does movies for a large studio and the actor who records themselves and also grows an image and also wants the viewers to believe it's real, to believe that that is them. Sometimes it's like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall. Just in some situations, not in all situations. Because there's definitely the public version of us and the private version of us. And like I've heard some people say, it's like, if you are truly sincere as a person, or let's say authentic as a person, there's not much of a difference between the two. I mean, there's a difference, but in terms of the general nature, the general character, there's not a whole bit of difference. And I think if you have enough time with people, you can find out, whether or not they're performing. And that's not to say that it's necessarily a bad thing to perform, because if you're performing, it kind of shows that you care. It's like, well, what do you think of a first date? You know, how many times have people gone on first dates and said and done things that they later may reveal to be things that were said and done because they wanted to make a good first impression? On the one hand, it's like, yeah, and on the other, the fact that they were willing to do that shows that they care, which is kind of a weird mix. And it's funny to me too, because general acceptance, general praise on a large scale, it is less important than the appreciation of certain people. You know, it's like I would rather certain people be in favor of what I was doing versus everyone. And in our civilization, actually, just in general with the human condition, with us as we are, we're always gonna like a good actor, even if we know they're acting. There's something about it that's, and it's multi-layered, and that situation in and of itself is a process and a story. Like somebody like the Liver King, who kind of started out one way, ended up another way, but when you hear somebody like that telling you why they did what they did, just like an actor in a movie, you can kind of relate, and it kind of brings you back around into the hook again, and that's kind of how it's supposed to be, because there is a difference between the public and the private. And a lot of shows and movies and a lot of what we're doing today with our phones and with the internet in general is trying to persuade people that what we're doing in revealing our private life, so to speak, is real. We're trying to sell the private life of people in a public way, which is interesting. Because when I watch reality TV shows, which I don't do, because I don't like reality TV shows. I think the name reality TV is just a complete insult because it's not real at all. Everybody is basically living out a show of their private life in a public way and trying to persuade the public that it is indeed private. But that's not even possible, because what's recorded will always go through the editing process and the gold will be chiseled out. And everybody knows this. It's like everybody knows the game and everybody knows the game rules. But while we're watching, we still want them to be good enough actors so as to make us believe it. And nobody is ever going to be surprised to find out that something that is intended to be a sincere showing of so-and-so's private life is actually not at all. It's like we're not ever surprised. We're actually... a lot of the interest comes when the cracks start to show and it starts to fall apart and the person has to do damage control. Because we're thinking to ourselves, oh shit, that must suck. How did you ever manage to break character, or how did you ever manage to screw up so bad that nobody no longer believes in your role? And at the same time, the outside observers, many of which who record quite often and are acting themselves, are in the exact same situation, but for now it's not them who is having everything fall apart. And I've noticed it kind of ends up coming into two camps of people on the internet. There are people who loudly and prominently live out the caricature and are completely aware of that and, don't make any secret about that. And then there are the ones who say, this is real, that this is actually it. No acting here. Which is not much different from an actor in a large studio playing a character, You have to say that. Of course. Because like I said, when people are acting, there's a whole different energy going on. There's an obvious air around that what's happening, it's just not real. And when there is a camera on, you'll notice this, and I think I've mentioned this before, a camera with the light flicked on changes the entire atmosphere. Completely different. Even though, right before that, there were other human beings around who are themselves also like cameras. We are in fact who the cameras are for, to watch the recording. And before that, another layer. The first layer is a person alone. The second layer is a person with other people around. And the third layer is a person with other people around with a camera on. The atmosphere changes for each one of those things that you introduce. And even the best actors in the world, the best possible actors, no matter who you would hypothetically go to, every human being changes when the camera turns on, or when it's time to take a picture. All of a sudden, everything just shifts. And it's one of the most interesting things ever, because a camera simply captures what's happening without judgment or without the ability to change anything outside the editing process and filters and things like that. But just in terms of the raw occurrence of what's happening, that's what the camera does. But with people who also record, in a way, what's happening, that they can be influenced, and that they can be made to lie and all sorts of other things. People are like cameras that you can get inside of a little bit and alter the footage. And it is that ability to alter the footage that is the very thing that we're trying to appeal to when we act and make movies. It's interesting. But for me, it's a stretch to say that everybody is acting all the time. I mean, I have no doubt that there are certain roles that you have to remember to take on to handle certain things. But you're even going to need a break from those. It's like one of the most tiring things that a person takes on in life is becoming a parent. Because once that happens, there's a certain level of things that are demanded of you for forever that you can't turn off. And the only way you can turn those things off is in moments when you're by yourself, probably. And that's an interesting thing. And I think that ability of a good actor to pull us in, somewhere, somebody along the line realized that can be useful. It's like all of a sudden, I mean, imagine involving yourself in something that resulted in not only great wealth, but a situation where millions of people told you that you're excellent and beautiful and awesome. I mean, fame is an interesting thing. And I can say for sure that I would much rather have the wealth than the fame. But there are plenty of people who would love the fame, I'm sure.